Hi, welcome to another episode of the Sports Psychology Podcast. I'm here with mental performance coach Georgia Miller. I'm Dr. Patrick Cohn. Today we have a very important topic for sports parents, and that is helping sports parents separate the athlete from the person. Because so many times in sports with very serious athletes, they tend to define themselves or their identity through sports. You're listening to the Sports Psychology Podcast. So, Georgia, one of the challenges that we see with athletes that spend a lot of time in their sport and are really serious about their sport is they define themselves through their sport performance. What that means is they tend to think that they're good persons when they're performing well, and they're bad persons when they're not performing well. I remember one of my very first clients that I worked with was a golfer. When he didn't shoot a low score, he was so embarrassed and so afraid that he would go and lock himself in the closet. Didn't want to speak to his parents or anybody else. That's really challenging, I think, for athletes.
Yeah, and it puts so much pressure on them going into a competition or a tournament because in their heads they're thinking, I have to do really well today or else I'm going to be a disappointment or else I'm going to feel like an awful person. And it's almost like they have to punish themselves. So they cut themselves off from those social ties when in reality, that's probably the best thing for them is to get their mind off their sport and go hang out with some friends and be with their family. But it's putting a lot more pressure on themselves.
Yeah, I call it hiding under a rock. If you take your sport home with you and you think about it and you dwell on it and you beat yourself up for a period of time, you're taking it home with you. You're taking your sport performance home with you and you're taking it personally. And if you're taking it personally, your self-esteem is too wrapped into your performance on the field.
And a lot of sport parents can add to that, even just in conversations with their friends or family. If athletes hear you say, yes, my son or daughter is the best swimmer, they just got this time, and they're only hearing you talk about their accomplishments in their sport, well, then they take that and they internalize that and think, oh, well, my parent is just only caring about my performance as an athlete. And now they feel like they have to live up to that all the time and impress other people and hold themselves to those standards. So even just those minor conversations that they're hearing with other people, you need to watch out for those because athletes can really internalize that.
Where do parents start with this phenomenon, this challenge?
I think watching your language and how you're talking about it and making sure that you aren't identifying your kid as, oh, well, he is a football player or she is a soccer player. No, they do those things. Yes, my son plays football, my daughter plays soccer, but making sure you're emphasizing all of those other amazing, awesome qualities about them that they can even use in their sport. Like, yeah, my son is a great leader for these specific themes. My daughter is very outgoing, and this is kind of how that plays out in the soccer field. But helping them identify not only as that athlete, but seeing all those awesome characteristics that they have throughout all their roles in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. So sounds like just, being themselves, whether they're in their sport environment or in their school environment or in social settings, is just being themselves and the person they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great thing that parents can do is helping them transition into other roles after games and competitions. So what I tell my sport parents that I work with is one of the best things that you can ask your athlete afterward is, where do you want to go eat? You're taking their focus off their competition, no matter how good they did, no matter how bad they did, and you're getting them into just their at-home role. Or maybe you're helping them make plans with friends, traveling for a tournament. Maybe you make plans to go see the city that you're in the new area, but you're helping them take their mind off their sport. So helping them transition into different area after their game is going to be really good for them too.
Yep. Funny story, my daughter before tennis matches would ask, we're going to go get some ice cream after the match, aren't we? That was her transition, right? She wanted to make sure that was going to happen, win, lose, or draw, that we were going to go get ice cream.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is a super important topic. how else can parents, instill that mindset in athletes that they're more than a score, or they're more than a win-loss record?
Yeah. Well, I want to build off of what you just said in your little ice cream routine, because that was consistent for you all as a family. So your daughter knew what to expect. And I think that consistency after competitions is really important. And if your athlete needs that little cool down period afterward, then that's okay to give them that. So if it's consistent that you guys don't really talk about the game or their performance for at least 30 minutes afterward, just to let some emotion subside, then that's great. Your athletes know exactly what to expect. So keeping some sort of consistency afterward, that way your athletes know exactly what they're getting from you and they aren't worrying about, well, what is mom or dad going to say to me?
And know your athlete. Does your athlete want to talk about their performance for after 30 minutes, after an hour? Maybe it's after 24 hours in some cases. Ask your athlete. When do you want to talk about your performance? Maybe they don't want to talk about it at all. Maybe they just want to switch gears and go into another role in their life.
Right. And one of my golfers mentioned that her dad constantly just brings up her golf at home, about when she's practicing, what she's doing, how she did at previous tournaments. And it was so much golf talk at home that she felt like she couldn't escape it. So that's another great tip for parents, is to eliminate the conversation of their sport at home and let them bring it up if they want to talk about it.
Love that tip. Yeah, I call it being sports 24/7 for the parent, and then the athlete starts to take on this idea or this notion that, well, this is the most important thing for the sports parent, and that's all they want to do. So I guess it's really important for the sports parent.
Right. So, and then it just adds more pressure on them to perform well because they feel like that's all their parent cares about.
Parents, remember that your athlete just happens to play sports. They're a person first and foremost, and they just happen to play sports. Sports is what they do. It's not who they are.
Yes.
Georgia, thanks for joining me again on the Sports Psychology Podcast. If you want more information about mental performance coaching, we work with a ton of sports parents and young athletes at Peak Performance Sports. So jump over to peaksports.com and check out our mental performance coaching. Thanks for joining us.